Ali, 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 yeah. I praise Allah for these lessons. I'm striving to be the message, and I thank Allah for His blessings. Ali was the circle 7. I praise Allah for these lessons. I'm striving to be the message, and I thank Allah for His blessings. Ali was the circle 7. I praise Allah for these lessons. I'm striving to be the message, and I thank Allah for His blessings. Ali was the circle 7. I praise Allah for these lessons. I'm striving to be the message, and I thank Allah for His blessings. Ali was the circle 7. I praise Allah for these lessons. I'm striving to be the message, and I thank Allah for His blessings. Ali was the circle 7. I praise Allah for these lessons. I'm striving to be the message, and I thank Allah for His blessings. Ali was the circle 7. Peace and love, family. Islamism. Want to rise upon the 7 and give all praises to the great God Allah, Father God Allah, and honors to His holy prophet, honors to our holy prophet, Noble Drew Ali Al-Hajj, Sharif Abdul Ali, that is. Give honors to my Moorish kin once again, here, there, and everywhere, and therefore honors to all of you who are continuously honoring yourselves by being yourselves. Give honors to our Grand National Seal. Give honors to our Grand National Emblem, National Flag, Divine Constitution and bylaws, and honors to all of you who are indeed a living manifestation and personification of everything, and I do mean everything, that our holy prophet brought to make us a nation. We want to say Islam to all the Moors, Salaam Alaikum to all of my Muslim family, Rahubat to those who demonstrate, the righteousness of Nuwapu. Want to give honors to everybody that's truly living what it is they say that they demonstrate. No matter what it is you demonstrate, whatever path you come through, if it make you better, all is well. I have a grand drawing that I would like to bring forth to our family. Very powerful measure, and it's actually entitled Intelligent Design, the Great God, Man, the macro and the microcosmic principle is actually what that is. I'm gonna edit that right now on my YouTube. Let me see here, microcosmic. Okay, there we go. We're right at 100 on that. Let's see if it let us pull it. Okay, that's cool. That's cool. We'll just keep it as it is. The macro and the microcosmic principle of creation and cosmology. And this is going to be a powerful measure to those who have eyes to see and ears to hear, and those who believe in doing their own research and not depend on somebody else to do research for them. That's how we demonstrate here. We never bring a measure forth to where a person solely have to depend upon what it is that we bring here. We give our people sources. We give our people information and direction. And the direction and information we give will direct them straight to where they need to be when it comes to dealing with this information that we have to bring. Islamism, brother Nova Bryant. Yes, sir. Make sure you let our family know we live. It's gonna be a grand drawing right here. At this particular point, in the measure, that's what we all dedicated to, giving our people what it is that we had intention to give them from the onset. We've been a lot of people been trying to distract our people from getting this information. A lot of them would like to act as if they already know this information, and act as if this information don't exist despite all the information that we give. But the nature of a swift angel is our duty is to make it rain. Our duty is to drop this truth on the people, and what they do with it after we drop it on them, it's on them. So this will close the mouths of the naysayers when it comes to the ears of those who truly seek truth. They'll no longer be misled by these people who have been trying to pull them out of their spirituality, out of their divinity. We have those in the community that are amongst us that will tell you that there is no supreme being, but yet they don't have proof to prove as to why there is no supreme being. So when we tell them that the supreme being is in us, that we are the expression of that supreme being, some will even try to reject that too, while at the same time saying that they are atheistic, but yet they believe in the principles of voodoo. They believe in the principles of magic. This is what they say now. But in order for you to believe in the principles of voodoo or the principles of magic, you got to believe in a force that's supernatural. So we see that many of these people are walking, living contradictions, so to speak. They are a contradiction to themselves, and they are a contradiction, to the community. How is it that you can claim, the spiritual principalities of a voodoo or some magic and yet deny spirituality? Make it make sense, family. So this is what we have to do. We have to start calling these people, on this nonsense that they present toward us. You see, they want to tear down the reality of a supreme being, a supreme consciousness. But again, they believe, in a principle that is supernatural. Think about this now. I want to overemphasize this so that our people see exactly where we're going. Everything happened just by chance. But yet and still, they would go to what they call witch doctors or root doctors or whatever you want to call it, right? And they say no God exists. No spiritual principles exist. But they are going to a man or a woman to work in the spirit realm for them to do what they can't do themselves. These are some of those who call themselves atheistic. These are some of those who call themselves non-believers in a supreme being. Make it make sense. You see? So if these things exist when you deal with the spirit realm, when you go pay money for somebody to remove evil from you, pay money to have somebody, bring a better union between you and your spouse, all this other things that y'all do, you believe in that individual as your God, because you believe that they can't do what you believe that they can do what you can't do, pardon self. And so this is a walking contradiction when they deal with our people. And that's why, most of them have opted out of dealing with the divinity within the self, and they are still serving gods outside of the self. Even though they say they don't believe in God, anytime you go pay your money to somebody to do what you can do for yourself, you go pay your money for somebody to do a hoodoo or voodoo ritual for you, you a liar when you say that you don't believe in a supreme being and you claim to be atheist. You're a walking contradiction. And we're gonna expose that in due time. We ain't gonna emphasize too much on that matter, but I want y'all to go and tell the people that Commission said that. Commission said that if you are paying your money to a voodoo priest, and at the same time denying that the Creator exists, the Most High exists, or that spirituality exists, everything happen according to science and by chance, you're a liar and you're a deceiver of the people. Any of you who claim that. You see, either spirituality exists or it don't exist. Make it make sense, because if you believe that it exists, when you go pay your money to that priest that you paying, in all actuality, by you paying that money to that priest and you saying that the supreme being don't exist or spirituality don't exist, you believe in African spirituality, hoodoo or voodoo, you're a liar and the truth ain't in you. Period. So now let me get into this grand drawing, because our title is Intelligent Design, the Great God. We ain't talking about a God outside of man. We talking about a God in man. Because we tell you the reality of God is in man. And the only reason that you'll have somebody say that, this is not the truth, is because they deny themselves. They have no knowledge of themselves. They have hatred toward themselves. Because in all spiritual texts or sacred writings, we ain't even talking about just the Bible or Quran. We talking about when you go back to Kemet and you deal with the teachings of the ancient Egyptians or the ancient Kemites, they taught of God's essence relying in man. You see, in other words, there was a connection between God and man without being spooky. You see, we ain't talking about worshiping men neither, because the ancestors never taught that. That came through other people who came into Kemet, because both the Quran and the Bible shows a time period where Kemet was on the right path. All you got to do is read Isaiah 19 in the Piscean records if you believe, and you don't have to believe in the Bible when you hear me make references to this. Because I don't accept, everything that has been translated, but I do know how to discern between right and wrong. You see, I'm talking about the people that put their soul, life, and their belief in that. I respect those people if that's what make them better. But I do know that truly, for one to understand that text, they have to go back and study the original, book. You got to get into the Hebrew, the Aramaic, and so forth and so on. That's all I'm saying with that. Same thing go for the Quran. The Quran speaks highly of Kemet, whether you know it or not. When it talk about the Kushite civilization of Sabah, a whole chapter dedicated to the people, the Kushites. We know the Kushites are the original builders of Kemet. Tarseti, the Nubians. You see, they were the ones who began to build upon the banks of the Upper Nile and establish in that particular land everything that we see that is in ruins today. So both these books, if you accept them, whether you accept them or not, that ain't really, it don't matter to me. I ain't trying to convince you to believe in neither one or the other. But I will speak the truth, concerning all texts, because I respect both of them in their original form. We believe in all books of truth. That's what we teach, in my Moorish American government, in our circle. So you'll never hear me dragging, the pristine purity of the teachings through the mud. You always see me standing in the fence of the truth of the book, not man's interpretation, so to speak, so I'm never here to do that. So what I'll say is, in light of dealing with this subject matter, intelligent design, the great God, man, macro, and the microcosmic principle, this is going to be a grand drawing, family. That's all I can say. And You just got to be able to know how to do your own research and study. If you don't have the mind to be an independent researcher or study, you're going to always be what you told and not what you know. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to go into a presentation. And I'm going to try to do this every time I go live so that our family can have some ground, so to speak, and some direction. And I want to try to start shortening up these videos so they don't have too much length, on them, so that we can move on and create more content, in the time span. So let me share my screen here. Remember, this subject matter is dealing with intelligent design. For those who are familiar with that, is dealing with the great God, man. And you see, there's an emphasis on the M.A.N. In all actuality, I'm talking about a master, of Allah's nature, a master of all nature. That's man to me, M.A.N. Macro and microcosmic principle of creation cosmology. Man himself is part and parcel of both the macro and the microcosm. Man himself, in whatever form you would perceive him, be it physical or in what we would call, spiritual terms. Or if we get into the science of the measure, man has always been present because man was a part of creative consciousness. Everything in the universe exists within man. Even scientists know that, right? Everything that's on the plane of existence that we live on, when it comes to natural phenomena, these things man too consists of. So when you hear me say macro and microcosmic principle, then you understand exactly where I'm coming from. Now, to those who haven't dug that deep, we're going to leave them where they at. We ain't going to even address them. And I'm talking about the one that ain't dug that deep, but like to be naysayers. Speak of things that they have never heard as if it is not true. Label it pseudo information because they ain't did the research. Y'all got to stop letting these people mislead y'all. That's a cop-out. And this is a cop-out that's often used by monomaniacs, those who are only in one subject matter, and they can only deal with that. So when it comes to being broad in their expression, they have no ground and foundation there, so they don't want to be took into that area because they will be exposed for what they don't know. So they use the word pseudo as a cop-out to stay within that little box that they done created for themselves. I want to show y'all, again, for those who don't know what a monomaniac is. This is a monomaniac right here, family. Let me share the screen. This is what a monomaniac is. That's right, Brother Noble Bryant. Naysayers. Look at this definition. This is a monomaniac, a person exhibiting an exaggerated or excessive enthusiasm for or preoccupation with one thing. So these are self-obsessed monomaniacs. You see, they can't deal with but one subject. So when they see somebody that is able to bring about a cohesion or bring unity, and this is a mental disorder as well. At one time, mental illness is what this is called, family. Monomania. So this is what these people that like to call us pseudo, that's what they're suffering from. They are monomaniacs. They can only deal with one subject matter. If they deal with what they like to call scientific literacy, that's all they know. They can't think outside of that. You see, even in the realm of spirituality, if they can only deal with spirituality from one branch of it, and they can't get outside of that without being overwhelmed or feeling like they being overthrown in their paradigm, this is a monomaniac. You see? And we see them amongst us every day. They are monomaniacs in all other areas. They believe everything is wrong outside of the subject matter that they have studied because they fear being exposed of being ignorant. They fear being exposed to being ignorant. So they want to keep you exactly where they are along the way. And how can you grow like that? How can you learn anything greater than that? See, that's the thing about the paradigm that I deal with. We deal with a union when it comes to dealing with science and sacred texts. This is not something that is being made up. This is something showing you that some of the theories that they have come up with recently, that they have begun to accept as scientific fact, they were already written of in sacred texts. They were already written. And then they have modern people that will make everything systematic and have you believe that their new way that they based off of what was already there ancient is something that they just invented, something they just came up with. Yeah, there's some progress that has been made in this modern time, but most of that progress stands upon the foundation that was laid by the giants of the past in times of antiquity. See, we got to stop letting people pillage what belonged to our ancestors and rebuild upon that particular structure that was already using the same materials from our ancestors, and then claiming that they came forth with it. And little do you know, our people that's embracing this, eating this up, you know, by you accepting that, that means that you are supporting, you are aiding and abetting in the overthrow of everything it is our ancestors brought and everything they taught. So you are enemy to your people. But we see you, and we're going to keep exposing you. So what I'm going to do is go now into what it is I have to present to my family. And this is going to be a grand drawing, family, like we said. Notice I have, you know, these 3 books that most of our people are familiar with. You see? Now, we don't get up here to preach to you. We just exposing some things that are not being taught in these particular schools of thought. Not directly, so to speak. You know, you have the Quran and you have the orthodox wave of thought, you know, that's mostly promoted when you deal with the Quran. But there's a deeper teaching that people don't know of that goes beneath the surface level. That's what commission gonna bring to you. And the same has to do with the book we call the Bible. We are taking you into the measures beyond what has been taught to you with somebody preaching from a pulpit. We digging deep beneath the exoteric to bring you into the consciousness of the esoteric and also certain aspects that have to do with scientific reality. I don't care what science books say and all that old other foolishness. That don't mean nothing to me, because Einstein even said that if somebody has sense enough, they know that the creator or someone greater in creation was involved in bringing creation into being. In other words, Einstein, one of the most praised European minds to them, he recognized intelligent design. You see? And then we have the circle 7, which we call the uniting of the Holy Quran of Mecca. And this has to do with a grand drawing. But I'm going to touch on some things real quick. And I'm going to leave it to the people, to do their own research. But a lot of this stuff is going to be plain when I set it out here. And we're dealing with the creation and cosmology at this point, and we're dealing with certain measures with man. Like I say, it's straightforward to the point. Oftentimes you hear about, in the scientific community, they talk about the Big Bang. You hear them talking about the Planck epoch and them not being to go back, beyond the Planck epoch. At least I want to say 10.47 seconds. Beyond that, they can't go nowhere beyond that. In science, right? They will give the creator such names as the cause, causeless cause, rootless root, the principle of creation. They got all types of names they would use, to beat around the bush and not say great God or God. Or they would say universal consciousness. You see? All this type of foolishness. So this lets you know that there's a split in the intelligence of man when we deal with the physical. As that intelligence, where one deal with what we call the material way of thinking, a left hemisphere thought pattern, and then the right hemisphere thinking, which deals with true consciousness of oneself. There's a split. So the scientific community is dealing only with the material side. Those who have true consciousness within themselves, they deal with a balance between both hemispheres. In other words, they can see the line of divinity that unite the two. In ancient Kemet, this is how ancestors taught. They wasn't extreme material or extreme spiritual. This is what we call the meiotic balance. Being able to find what was true and right in observable phenomena as well as non-observable phenomena. That's meiotic. So if you find somebody that say they Afrocentric, they say that they are demonstrating Kemetic principle or Kemetic spirituality, and they deny the reality of a supreme reality, intelligent design, this is a red flag. This is a fraud. This is a sham teacher. That's the real pseudo. Because how can you honor Kemet without honoring the principles of the spirituality that's there? Because these particular books that we have in front of us, what they have obtained and what they gain are also remnants that come through the lineage of most of the teachings of ancient Kemet, even though they have their own spin on it, so to speak. We know what's being said if we done did the research. Only a fool, would say that. And so what I teach is that all of these books have drawn from Kemet. Every last one of them. Every last one of them, family. Now let me start here. Since we're talking about creation. This is the story that we have often been told. For those who read the Piscean records, or what they like to call the Tanakh, the Torah, the 5 books, the Bible, whatever you want to call it. This is what has been stated in that text, right? I want to show you something. This is called comparative research. It says here, y'all heard it, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now, the earth was formless and void without form, right? It says, and darkness was over the surface of the deep. Some translations say face of the deep. And the Spirit of God was hovering over the surface of the waters, right? They say God said, let there be light, and there was light. God saw the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening in the morning, the first day. This everybody done heard this. We were raised on this. Our grandmama, mama, everybody taught us this, right? Now we know whether they accept biblical narrative or text or not. We know that the biblical text is way older than these scientific textbooks that they have now and they just created. We know that science, as they will boast and brag to you, was created to be debunked. Which means they're always looking for something to have some improvement. And so they do away with, what it is that they see as obsolete. The difference between that narrative and the narrative of a sacred text, the sacred text has always been what the sacred text has always been from the time it came forth or it surfaced up until now. But we can look at many cases where you have scientists coming to debunk other scientists. But yet before that scientist was debunked, whatever theory they came up with that had become accepted by the masses was accepted as the absolute truth. You see, at the time, it was absolute until the period of somebody else coming to debunk it. But yet, when we look at the Quran in its original text, we look at the Bible in whatever manuscripts you can find from it. Even if you look at the Circle Cell, all of these things have always been the same. You see, they have always been the same when you go to the root. So this being the case, this automatically, it raises a problem to those who have consciousness, those who can understand. But I'm going to show you something. Despite the fact that all of these are three different texts that we have just showed you here, I'm going to show you how much in harmony they are and how science, outside of the consensus of these three books, and I'm just going off the translation. I can go deep into the original text as well, meaning the Arabic or the Hebrew. We can go into those things. But when we deal with science, and we can go outside of these books, we can pull up the Bhagavad Gita, the Pali Canon, teachings of Hinduism, and all of them. And every last one of them, though they may speak in their own language and word things in a certain type of way, all of them are basically agreeing indirectly on this creation process, so to speak. It may have different names that they use, but the basic concept, all the way back to Kemet and Sumeria, they all saying the same thing in a different way, just different languages being used. Now we know that there are certain wayward texts that come up with totally different types of cosmologies. We just speaking mainly on the ones that the people have accepted now. So if it's talking about the beginning and the heavens and the earth being created and being formless, well, what would this represent in the terms of dealing with science? If there was formlessness, this would have to mean that the universe was on the manifest, right? And though there were potential existence in the universe, it had not yet been made manifest. So there had to be a process of beginning. Now, they like to call it a Big Bang. And if that's called a process of beginning, what is called the cosmos and the cosmology, how is that so different when we say in the beginning? Intelligent design, God created the heavens and the earth. I don't see the big deal. Only person that has a big deal is one that has a materialist mindset. And they claim to be atheistic, but they can't prove that the creator don't exist. They can only tell you why they believe he don't exist. So it's a silly argument from the onset to anybody that got some sense. They believe that they can say that the Most High don't exist or the creator don't exist. Everything is fake, but they don't have to prove nothing. But yet they ask those who represent a supreme being or the Most High to prove their claim. See, that's another thing don't make sense. If you are the one that's making claim the creator don't exist, the burden of proof is upon you to prove that. Because you came forth with the antithesis. Not the people that believe that. So if you have evidences that, then produce it. But if your evidence is just philosophizing and talking about what other scientists said, then you just guessing. Now, our Moorish Holy Quran talk about that. In fact, I'm going to show you this before we go even further. Right here. And it's actually dealing with creation coming into being. I'm going to start here. I'm going to go back to what I was building on. This is dealing with Yehoshua and Barata. Now, Barata would be what the scientist has become today. Yehoshua would be one who has been initiated into the teachings of ancient Kemet, and has a balance, a ma'atic balance. Because we know in the unknown life of, Jesus the Christ, it tell you he was initiated into the teachings of ancient Egypt. Remember, the Bible says he was took into Egypt at the age of 12. You can accept that or not. That's on you. If you want to see the existence of the brother Jesus or whether or not he was a physical man, his sorcery actually exists with him and his father and his mother, meaning that there's an actual grave site for the whole family. That's a whole nother level of discussion, though. So nevertheless, this is one man, a man of spirituality. And you have Barata Rabo, who would have been like the scientist is today. So he has a conversation with Yehoshua. Watch what it says. It says, together they read the sacred books, right? It says, among the Buddhist priests was one who saw a lofty wisdom in the words that Yehoshua spoke. It was Barata Rabo, right? It says, together, Yehoshua and Barata read the Jewish Psalms and the prophets and read the Vedas and the Avesta and the wisdom of Gautama. And as they read and talked about the possibilities of man, Barata said, this is what he said. This is what Barata began to say in the conversation with Yehoshua. He said, man is the marvel of the universe. He is a part of everything. For he has been a living thing on every plane of life, right? And he said, time was when man was not. And then he was a bit of formless substance in the molds of time. And then a protoplasm. And by universal law, all things tend upward in a state of perfection, to a state of perfection, or perfectionist. It says, in the protoplasm evolved, becoming a worm, then a reptile, a bird, a beast, and then at last it reached the form of a man. Now, this is evolution right here. Darwin's theory right here in this particular text right here. He said, now, man himself is mind. And mind is here to gain perfection by experience. And mind is often manifest in flesh form in the form of best suited to its growth. So mind may manifest as worm or bird or beast of man. It sounds real good, don't it? The time will come when everything of life will be evolved onto the state of perfect man. Oh man, Barato laying it on thick, right? It says, and after man is man in perfectness, he will evolve to higher forms of life. So Yehoshua will stop here. Whoa, wait a minute. He said, Barata Rabo, who told you this? That mind which is man may manifest in flesh of beast, or bird, or creeping thing. Barato said, from the time which man remembers not, our priests have told us so. So we know. Yehoshua said, enlighten Rabo. Are you a mastermind and do not know that man knows naught by being told? He said, man may believe what others say, but thus he never knows. If man would know, he must himself be what he knows. Do you remember, Rabo, when you were an ape or a bird or a worm? Now, if you have not better proven your plea than the priests have told you so, scientists, in this modern time, you do not know, you simply guess. And then he said, regard not then what any man has said, let us forget the flesh and go with mind into the land of fleshly things. Mind never does forget, and backward through the ages, masterminds can trace themselves, and thus they know. You see? And he says, time never was when man was not. That which will begin will have an end. For if man was not, the time will come when he will not exist. And so the main thing is that Barata Rabo, he had to be checked by Yehoshua. Yehoshua like, man, do you remember a time when you was a ape, a worm? All this evolution. That's what I ask people. When they go to saying that God don't exist, show us proof of his existence. Well, I just ask them quickly. I say, well, your great grandmama don't exist right now. Show us proof of her existence. We see that you here, so I can accept that as proof of her existence. The very fact that you here. Because I know that you got a grandmama, and I know you got a great grandmama, but if you ain't never seen her, you don't have proof that she really existed. You don't know how she looked. But it would be foolish for me to sit up here and tell you that she didn't exist because I didn't see her. You see what I'm saying? And don't even get to talking about your great grandmama. You see? And then this is where the contradiction comes in at its greatest aspect. They believe scientifically that they have a common ancestor that they can trace themselves back to. They believe that DNA is foundation of mentioning in this common ancestor. I ain't got no problem with that. But I'm saying you have no proof of that common ancestor. You don't know who that common ancestor is. They may tell you it's a man or a woman born in a particular time and give you an age on it. Most of the time, it's going to be our people too. I ain't got no problem with that. But you don't have no proof that it exists. But you'll trace yourself back and for sure say you come from an ape based on experiments they demonstrated now. Make it make sense now. I mean, come on now. Am I crazy or something? Make it make sense, family. You believe in everything they tell you scientifically without being able to prove it, nor can you prove it yourself. You have no scientific method on testing what it is. And this is where I say we got to stop playing with ourselves and playing with our people. That's called cherry picking. That's called selective research. Oh, but you believe in, selective progress in relation to dealing with Darwin's theory, huh? Oh, so the text of Darwinism has become your holy book. And since Darwin is the author, then he your God. Whether you say so or not, that's the truth of the matter. So just like Barata Rabo was guessing, he can't remember a time that he was an ape, a worm, or any other thing, a bird or whatever. He can't remember that. He was talking about what somebody else told him. So we as a people who are knowledgeable have to have this in mind when we're dealing with these type of people that are calling themselves teachers of scientific literacy, and we know that they're dealing with mental illness and they're dealing with being a monomaniac. They can only deal with one thing. And if they master it and become eloquent enough in their own ignorance, then they can articulate it in a way to convince a fool into believing a lie as the truth, and then tell you to your face. A well-organized lie will always, debunk or overthrow a disorganized truth. Just because you organize the lie well, and the truth that you're looking at is somebody not being able to articulate it well, it still doesn't change the reality that the truth is the truth and a lie is a lie. So you can organize the lie and speak it eloquently all you want to. It's still a lie. It's just an eloquent lie. So anybody that follow you in that right there, into that serpent pit, then they deserve to be devoured. But I ain't going. And I know people that got sense enough to think. And they don't deal with personality worshiping man praising. See, that's the problem with y'all. Y'all know Brother Commission don't deal with that. We honor and respect all our people for what they do. But we ain't gonna put you on no pedestal where we bowing down to you and worshiping whatever it is you think you doing because you think you do it great. But we don't mind you trying to be great. Be great. All of us got divinity in us from the highest state. Nothing wrong with demonstrating deific will, but I don't have to, try to overthrow what you demonstrate in order to uplift what I'm saying. I'm just pointing out the fact of the matter. On one hand, you want to accept common ancestor, be it an ape or a man, Homo erectus, whatever you want to call it. You don't know him, never seen it. But on the other hand, just because you can't see the Most High, he don't exist. Make it make sense. So I'm going to go back to what I was saying about the creation and the cosmology right here, right? So in the beginning, according to the Bible, they gave you this whole breakdown. They talked about darkness on the face of the deep and the Spirit of God moving upon the face of the water. For those who don't know, spirit is known to be ruach. Ruach is actually breath. Breath actually deals with intelligence. Ruach also goes over into the Arabic as ruh, which is R-U-H, is R-U-A-C-H, in the Hebrew text, but both of these things have to do with intelligence. So when the Most High blow holy breath into man, holy breath is intelligence. Everything that you see around you then you don't need a microscope in order to see this. Just pay attention to the seasons around you. We know what's going to happen in fall. We know what's going to happen during the winter time. We know what's going to happen in the springtime when everything come back up after everything is failed. We know how, greatly blossoming, blooming things are by the time summertime come around. This is observation of natural phenomena. You can find that same observation being demonstrated in both the sacred text, the Bible, and the Quran. You can find it being demonstrated in ancient Kemet. You can find it being demonstrated in the sacred text of ancient India before a science book was ever written. Make it make sense that there is no observation of observable phenomena being demonstrated. So how are these things mentioned? Because you do know science came from what was called philosophy, right? And a lot of philosophical truth came from what they call spiritual or religious, right? Or alchemical, right? See, that's the part y'all don't want to deal with. But we know what time it is. So now, being that we see that they're speaking of this right here, Spirit of God moving on the surface of the waters, in all this darkness and all this vast universe, in ancient Kemet, it speaks of Autumn coming up as a mound in the darkness in the new, or the noon, I like to call it the celestial now. Same thing being expressed in different words. We see something coming out of nothing is what I'm talking about. Just like they tell you that the universe, the Big Bang happened in that great void in the universe, Kemet has a story of something coming out of nothing in the darkness of the new. Before your science books ever came into existence. Make it make sense. And it's the same thing right here in the Piscean records. Long before your scientific text exists, written in those scrolls that they found, that they call the 5 books, is talking about something coming out of nothing in formless and a void state into existence. But it was a force that caused this to come into existence. Intelligent design. Everything that you observe within the phenomena of creation around you, it's on a cyclic process and pattern. Even the human body, it survives based on a cyclic process. If it was evolutionary, then we would be evolving into something else when it comes to the physical, the way Darwin teach it. But we have a fixed cycle of phenomena unfolding in the same way it does. You ain't seen us turn into nothing different or mutate into nothing different. If this would be so, we would have seen it in the last 100 years. We have been the same as humans, that we've been the same as a human has been made manifest. All this stuff talking about you come from an ape and all this, you can't prove it. All they did is made comparable phenomena on the shape and the structure and say this is what it looked like. Well, they also compare us with mice. They also compare us with dolphins. Our brain is compared to the brain of the jellyfish. Make it make sense. Why haven't we evolved into these things? Why don't we have some gills? I'm just going into common sense, family. So now that we see what's being said here, it also talked about let there be light, and there was light. Now in ancient Kemet, this would be the meiotic balance, a separating, Pepi from Ra. You see, in the Kemetic teaching, right? Because the light that's spoken of here is not light dealing with sun. It ain't light dealing with moon. It's light that's dealing with the presence of divinity. We know it because the word translated is ma'or or ori, which means luminary, light being. So when it said, let there be light, this is the actual manifestation of the light beings or light being in singular that are in existence, that are actually taking place during the time of creation being brought forth. And these light beings are the same ones that became known as the Elohim. When he said, let us make man in our image, this is when they came into the being, basically. Light beings. You know what a being is, right? So light beings, hold up, let me show you this right here, because we ain't finna play with y'all. Because if I don't show it, they're going to swear I made it up. I done showed them this already, because they done already seen it, most of them. But we going to go on here and use the hammer of repetition just to make sure they got it. Here it is right here. Yo, in the beginning, right? Let's go. We already see God created the heavens and the earth. The word bara is used. That same word bara that they use here is the same word they use in Arabic too. It's actually bari in Arabic. But bara, you know, has to do with creation. And it just deals with simply creation. You see bara, right? Now, let me go here for you to the next portion, because I want to get to the aspect. It's talking about void without form and so forth and so on, the darkness. I was telling y'all about the spirit being ruh. They said wa ruh. See that right there? Wa ruh. Wa ruh. That's the spirit right there, right? That's intelligence, family. It's also used for wind. Wind is synonymous with breath. You know, we can go on and on and on. They got it in many different scriptures. They're using it. When you go to the bottom, you'll see it's there. So let me go back over here. They also call it pneuma in Greek, right? So-called Greek, as they say, right? Hovering over the waters. We're going to get into that in a minute. Here's the light that we're talking about. See? Let there be light. You see? Remember I was talking about that Ori? Let there be light, family. What are they talking about? When they say let there be light, look, it's just all over the place in all the books. They're showing you every book that it's in, right? So we ain't stressing that right there. Right? We want to take you to the actual root of the word. So it takes you in here, in these other places, daylight, sunlight, everything. Illumination, bright in every sense, light. You see? Happiness. They connecting this right here, you know, to all types of light. You see? And this is a word that has been evolved out of Kemet. You know, when they spoke of M.A.N, and I talk about this all the time. Me'or means a luminary. You see that? Ma'ore, which would be M-A-U-R in the Egyptian language. M.A.N, hidden light, right? I mean, they go on and on and on with it, family. But you're definitely dealing with a luminary. That's what it was talking about, the face of the deep and all of that. That's dealing with Genesis, the heaven, light bearer, luminary. So now that we have this insight, when we go back over here to what we've been demonstrating, since we have that foundated now, we see what the light separating from the darkness is. Prophet Noble Drew Ali tell you that man, spirit man, existed with the creator from the beginning. Piscean records say the same thing too in Proverbs chapter 8. Now let's go to the Quran and see what it has to say. In the Holy Quran, in the name of Allah, the Beneficent and Merciful, it says, now you see what we just gave you a few minutes ago, talking about intelligent design. Listen to what it said in the Quran. Moreover, he, speaking of Allah, comprehended in his design the sky, and it say heavens and the earth in certain translations, and it had been as smoke, meaning that, again, the potential for the elements of creation were there in that darkness. Some people like to call it dark energy, dark matter, dark gravity. Though you couldn't see it with the physical eye, you have to have instruments to be able to observe this activity or this phenomena. Some of it you can observe with the right equipment, right? But moreover, he comprehended in his design the sky, and it had been as smoke. And he said to it and to the earth, come ye together willingly or unwillingly. And they said, we do come together in willing obedience. Now I know when we hear this, we like to think of the Creator as speaking these words. But really, the context is being brought forth by the translator. And the translator is trying to give it to you in the way that we are able to understand it. But we know of a surety that the Most High didn't speak to the elements in the voice that I'm speaking with now. His activity suggests that was what was demonstrated. You see what I'm saying? That's why I say in the book of Genesis, God said, God made, God saw God's creation. God said. He wasn't speaking in the language that you're thinking about. It was the action that was demonstrated. And we can transliterate what's being said according to the action and the act that we bear witness to that it took place. So the context is to give it to you so that you can comprehend it. So that just come with the territory of any sacred text being transliterated. I ain't got no problem with that. I get it. But we can rest assured that Supreme Being wasn't talking like I'm talking now. His talking was action. You know how they say action speak louder than words? It's more of thought activity than words being spoken. If I had a thought to manifest something, or just say build a home with my own hands, and I just started building it without telling you that I was building it, you would look at me and say, man, he building a home. But you didn't know that I'd even speak of the blueprint or put the blueprint out there. I know what I have in my head and what I want to build. You see what I'm saying? It's like that. One thing is having the intent, and another thing is manifesting the intent and making it become an action. So that's how we look at intelligent design. It's in the nature of that intelligence to manifest whatever it will. That's why apple seeds produce apple trees. That's why orange seeds produce orange trees. Intelligent design. You ain't gonna never see no orange tree all of a sudden start producing apples or bananas or any other fruit other than what it is, because there are boundaries. Even though that they consist of the same base element of atoms, there's an equal proportion or different examples of those proportions that are being demonstrated that cause these things to manifest as they do. It's a certain combination in the amount of atoms that it takes to make the apple seed what it is. It's a certain type of aspect when you deal with the periodic table of elements and you get into the molecular structure of bananas and strawberries and everything else. They have their own mathematically assigned amount in the elemental field, so to speak, that they produce, or they are reproducing themselves from through the cycle that they come through. That's living mathematics, family. But nevertheless, we see the Quran talking about the same thing, but said it in a different way. And the word istawa is used. That word istawa in Arabic means he rose. That means he set creation into motion, or the powers of creation into motion, and he rose above it. He rose above the creation. You see, that's intelligent design. So everything in creation basically exists within the consciousness of its creator. Let us move on. There's some commentary that was given here. Yusuf Ali on this particular ayat that I read right here. That's 41. Hold up. Ayat 11. But they go on, they say it here. It says, note 4475, right? It says, it would appear as if the earth was spread out after the sky was made. In the passage of the creation of the earth and the evolution of life on our globe are mentioned first. And making of the sky into the seven firmaments mentioned last, it says the two statements are not inconsistent. It is stated here that when the sky was made in the seven firmaments, it had existed previously as smoke or vapor or steam. The idea I derive from the collation of relevant Quranic passages is that Allah first created primeval matter, which was as yet without order, shape, or symmetry. See, that go back to Genesis when it says with void, without form. God created the heavens and earth, right? He produced the materials. It's just like if you know anything about construction. Before, ones begin to work on a particular site, materials are delivered to the work site. You may have flooring that's put in the building. You may have, sheetrock. You may have carpentry, wood, and so forth and so on. Just on the foundation of the structure is what I'm saying. And then they begin to work and build with these materials. It's the same thing that we talk about, creation. People don't know in science there's a term that's called ground state. So though the materials that exist, at that particular time exist and have a potential to be created, ground state have them operating, at a low frequency of energy. And I'm going to show you this right here. So y'all will know this right here. So when we say the earth was void and without form and darkness was hovering over the face of the deep, you understand it. So ground state is the lowest energy state of an atom or other particle. So in other words, we can look at those atoms, though they have a potential. When the great God Allah began to create and things was void and without form and darkness was on the face of the deep, they was present, but they wasn't charged yet. And this is what they call in science 0 point energy of the system in ground state. You see, the ground state of a quantum mechanical system is stationary state of the lowest energy, the energy of the ground state. So we seen that this would actually be the state when we talk about the earth being formless, though the materials existed and void and darkness was over the surface of the deep. You see, and then the Spirit of God moved, and began to form, so to speak. You see, the activity of the Spirit charged those atoms that was in the ground state, the material that was already there, and then formulated a mass, brought it into oneness, And a lot of people like to call this a Big Bang. But it was not a bang as in explosion and blowing up and all that type of foolery. You know, it actually has to do with vibration and sound. That's why they say the word created. Sound and word is synonymous. You can't have a sound without word. But however, in this special realm, the word that they are referring to is the thought activity vibrating to such extent to where it causes an expansion, or what people like to call a Big Bang. We've showed our family before, and you can look this up, where they have people that can place sand on metal plates and roll, balls around this plate in a circle, and it begins to vibrate and cause shapes, to take form. So this is the same thing if you deal with the phenomena in the cosmos when there's a spoken, vibration or thought activity that causes this vibration and expansion, consciousness, as we call it, expansion of consciousness within the universe. This vibration, which you can hear, if you go look at some of the videos, they actually have a sound that the universe make, and it actually sounds similar to when people meditate. When they people meditate because they're trying to actually reconfigure the cells within the body, to bring a peace to the body. Where in the universe, this same process, almost divinity and consciousness is in a state of self-meditation. The same way in that vibration, just like you can see ones creating it with, look this up on YouTube when you get a chance. Vibration makes geometric patterns and geometric structures, produce shapes that deal with sacred geometry. If you know anything about what is called the seed of life or the flower of life, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So it is through this coming out of the ground state of buoyancy that vibration causes creation. Now you can call it, again, the controlling unknown, the causes cause, or whatever you want to call it, unknown cause. We call it God. We call it intelligent design. But the thing is about it, we can see that the same thing that's spoken of scientifically was spoken of in these sacred texts. Whether you accept it or not, the general opinion of men will never alter the nature of the truth. You see? Let's go on though. Brother Yusuf Ali, I love this brother translation. A lot of Orthodox Muslims don't like Yusuf Ali because they say that he was the son of a Sufi, as if something wrong with that. But we ain't gonna go there. So anyway, it says, it's stated here that when the sky was made in the seven firmaments, it had existed previously as smoke, or vapor, or steam. The idea I derive from a collation of relevant Quranic passages is that Allah first created primeval matter, which was as yet without order or shape or symmetry. This state is called chaos, as opposed to cosmos in Greek cosmogony. It says the next stage would be condensation of this primeval matter into gases, liquids, or solids. On this subject, no precise information is given to us. It belongs to the realm of physics. About the earth, we are told of 4 stages or days. About the heavens, of 2 stages or days. For days, see 4477. Below, if these stages proceed together in time, it is obvious that each stage as we know it on earth is half as long as each stage in the heavens. But these are questions of physics, astronomy, or geology. You see what I'm saying? Now, Muslims don't deny scientific literacy or scientific activity. We demonstrate the proof of showing you that exists. So let us go on. The brother went on to say, he said, hold up. And this is also dealing with Yusuf Ali. It's 4476. He said, I take this to mean also that Allah's design and creation was not to keep heaven and earth separate, but together, as we indeed are, being part of the solar system and travelers through space, crossing the path of several comets, and all matter created by Allah willingly obeys the laws laid down for it. So it's in the nature of everything in creation to obey its creator. We can't have creation or speak of creation without having a creator. It don't make no sense. You see? So he's speaking of the coming together, bringing a union into the mass, right? So both the Bible and the Quran are basically agreeing with each other, these texts. So now we come to the Moorish Holy Quran, speaking upon the same matter. After everything that we just said, in the Moorish Holy Quran, it says, and this is Moorish Holy Quran, chapter 11, ayats 19 through 24. It says, from Allah's own record book, we read, the triune Allah breathed it forth and stood 7 spirits before his face. The Hebrews call these 7 spirits Elohim. So now this is taking us back to the book of Genesis when it speaks of the spirit of God moving upon the face of the waters. And the light beings that I spoke of that would come forth. This is your Elohim. That holy breath, that consciousness, intelligent design produced that intelligence or intelligent luminary light beings that would do the work about bringing creation into being. This is no different than Neter bringing forth the Neteru, and the Neteru bringing creation to being in Kemet. You see? And the same thing when it comes to dealing with the angels or the Malaika coming together, to gather up the dust and gather up what Allah will for them to bring things into creation. So we see the same thing being said throughout all these different texts, regardless of what language they use, regardless of what vehicle is coming through. It's saying the same thing. But listen, the Moorish Holy Qurans give greater detail of this activity. It says, from Allah's own record book, we read the triune Allah breathed it forth and stood 7 spirits before his face. The Hebrews call these 7 spirits Elohim. And these are they who in their boundless power created everything that is or was. These spirits of the triune Allah moved on the face of the boundless space, and 7 ethers were, and every ether had its form of life. These forms of life were but the thought of Allah, intelligent design, clothed in the substance of their ether planes. Meaning that there are, just like we say, there are different Neteru that govern different portions of creation. The Neteru that govern the sun, the Neteru that governs the vegetation, the Neteru that governs, the stars, so forth and so on. That's what it means when it speaks of these spirits. Basically had its own form, within its ether plane. These forms of life were but the thought of Allah, clothed in the substance of their ether planes. Men call these ether planes the planes of protoplasm. For those who don't know what protoplasm is, this is actually the first expression of man taking on a physical form coming through in his pilgrimage, coming through creation. Protoplasm is another way of speaking of the atomic substance. Protoplasm means the first form. Let me show you this right here so our people don't get it twisted. For those who already been on my channel, they know what I'm talking about. So you already know where we at with it. But we're going to give it to the people that don't know no better, so they think that we ain't just making this stuff up. Protoplasm of a living plant bacterial cell whose cell wall has been removed, right? That's one definition. I want to get you into the etymology. Because the etymology tell you exactly what's being said. All right, so here it is. They got a couple of them. And they tell you that this protoplasm is, again, it deal with a living part of the cell that's surrounded by plasma membrane. It's the mixture of small molecules such as ions and what they call monosaccharides. It says amino acids and proteins and so forth and so on. You know, so when they mention this protoplasm, it's going into all of that, family. And they got many different breakdowns of this here. Dealing with, I mean, you can just look the word up. Protoplasm. And you go everywhere. Here it is. This is the one I was looking for right here to be exact. If you look right here, see that right there? See, first something molded, first created human. You see what I'm saying? They use the term atom here. They got cytology definition dealing with cytoplasm and so forth and so on. But this is dealing with the first life form, protoplasm. So when you see that being mentioned here in the Moorish Holy Quran, and it said these forms of life were but the thought of Allah clothed in the substance of their ether planes, men call these ether planes the planes of protoplasm, of earth, of plant, of beast, of man, of angel, and cherubim. 7. So they would call these the 7 ether planes. Because if you go into the book of Genesis, you know, everything started from non-existence into the heavens coming into existence. And then we had, you know, earth, you know, after the firmament was created, plants being created, then the beast being created, then man himself being created. You know, when we go into angel and cherubim, that's really signifying that Genesis 2:4-7 is really talking about the beginning of creation. When the Spirit of God was breathed into the soul of man and he became a living soul. So man himself represented coming out of spiritual pilgrimage in his elemental state, manifesting through all of creation, because we know everything in the creation of the macrocosm is in the microcosm. So everything that came, when people say we come from stardust and all of this type of stuff, there's truth to that. We star being, we celestial beings, we galactical beings. All that is, yeah, because we consist of the elements that came into beings and caused these things to come into being. But yet there was design that is intelligent, an intelligent design that caused these things to be. So again, it goes on. It says, these planes with all their teeming thoughts of Allah are never seen by the eyes of man in flesh. Meaning you can't just see this phenomena taking place with your carnal eyes. You know, and you can look and see a couple of things when you deal with a few scientific instruments, but they are still workings that cannot be seen by the physical eye of man. And if scientists will admit this, they have to go into a realm of the knowledge of the unknown, because they are limited in their understanding as well. So these planes with all their teeming thoughts of Allah are never seen by eyes of man in flesh. They are composed of substance far too fine for fleshly eyes to see, and still they constitute the soul of things. So we see the connection between the Piscean records, the Bible, in their creation. We see the connection between the Quran, and we see a connection between the Moorish Holy Quran. So being that we have all of these books saying the same thing in different ways, how can any of one of them be pitted against each other? How can any of them be wrong? according to them relating to creation. I'm just asking. Now, for those who think, that the Moorish Holy Quran and all these other books that we just spoke of deal with, things that just happen by chance, and they deal with no connection to the divinity of things. All this stuff right here has to go into the aspect of dealing with those who have not begun to observe creation, or those who don't believe in the reality of their own divinity, and they just don't believe in themselves. We can't make you believe in yourself. But one of the things that Noble Drew Ali taught the Muslims was know thyself and thy Father God Allah. When we go into the Moorish Holy Quran, that's the first teaching he taught. So looking at it from this standpoint, I just want to cover a few points, and I'm going to close this demonstration out, just proving certain things. Now, let's look at the Holy Quran, for example. They speak, a lot of people say, well, the Quran is fake. It was based off the Bible, and all this other stuff. I done heard all types of nonsense throughout the years, and all of it's coming from Eurocentric scholarship, basically. Coming from the European, and a lot of people adopting it because they don't like Islam. And they taught to be thinking demarcated. So we expect to hear all that type of stuff from them. But one thing I always say, the general opinion of men will never alter the nature of the truth. So there are certain things that cannot be explained by these people. For example, I want to get into some natural phenomena right now and talk about it. We are told that Muhammad ibn Abdullah, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that he was illiterate. He wasn't a reader or a writer, so to speak. So the question would ask, outside of him being illiterate, even if he was, can you produce any evidence of Prophet Muhammad traveling outside of Arabia, crossing the Atlantic Ocean? Is there any evidence out there for somebody to prove that Muhammad has ever sailed in the seas? And if there is, and you're going to need this proof to deal with this one fact in the Quran, then you can debunk the Quran if you can prove that Muhammad, on this particular base, if you can prove Muhammad crossed across the Atlantic, then you can debunk the Quran, because the Quran speaks of, as you can see here on my screen, let me make sure I'm sharing. It talks about how Allah has set free two bodies of flowing water, meeting together. Now, though these waters meet together, there's a barrier which they don't transgress. So there's a barrier in between, these two waters, that they don't come together and mix. But yet there's no physical barrier, ain't no translucent glass or nothing put in between them. This is the nature of creation, right? And this actual phenomena exists in the ocean, in the sea, so to speak. How would Muhammad have this knowledge and he never sailed across the Atlantic? Or he never sailed in the ocean, according to what we have. We don't have nothing telling us Muhammad ever sailed the seas. So how would Muhammad have this knowledge? Because this is what was revealed in the Quran. You see, I want some of the people that like to go against the Quran to explain this. In the commentary, Yusuf Ali speaks on where it explains how two bodies of water, and salt water and sweet, mix together, yet keep separate as if there was a barrier or partition between them. This is also one of the favors of Allah. Seawater is a sanitating agent, while fresh water is sweet and palatable to drink. Right? So salt water and fresh water basically mixing together, but not mixing together. They ain't even mixing. They just meeting out in this invisible barrier to where they unmix. Actually, that's the phenomenon about it. This was revealed in the Quran, Surah 19, Ayat 20. Make it make sense, family. In part itself, that's Surah 55, 19 and 20. Now, this is really referring to the mixture between the Mediterranean and the Atlantic Ocean. You know, and they actually have like the salinity that is lower than 36.0% and 10.0%, you know, from 200 to 800. And this is dealing with the depths or the meters. And then when you go beneath that, you got 1,000 meters, you know, 200 more meters in depth. That's 11.5. Salinity, that's higher, 36.5. And then you go down to 1,200. That's another 200 meters. That's 10.0. And then you got 1,400 meters. But when you get up to the 400 meter mark and 200, this is where they call it the Gibraltar Seal. You know, there's a separation that takes place between the Mediterranean seawater and the Atlantic Ocean water. How would Muhammad have a knowledge of this and this be manifest if he ain't never been over there? That's what I want to know. So all you naysayers, you got to prove that. There's another measure that speaks of in Surah 24, Ayat 40. You know, where it says, or the unbeliever's state is like a darkness in deep sea. You unbelievers. That's what it's talking about, your consciousness. It is covered by waves, above which are waves, above which are clouds, and darkness, one above another. If man stretches out his hand, he cannot see it. That's what Allah says. So make it make sense. How would Muhammad have knowledge of the depths of the sea and the different levels of the sea if he had never been into the sea? Or now would you like to say, oh, he probably sailed and we just don't know he sailed? So when you do that, now you got to also use that same logic when it comes to the supreme being. You see what I'm saying? Because you can't have it both ways now. Man, that's crazy. These are just small things, family. There are certain aspects that even do with the clouds. You know, where it says, have you not seen how Allah makes the clouds move gently and joins them together and then make them into a stack? And then you see the rain come out. That's observing scientific phenomena. That's Surah 24, Ayat 43. So y'all trying to tell me that Muhammad was demonstrating that would make Muhammad a scientist then, right? So either we got to accept Prophet Muhammad was a scientist by observing the clouds and the phenomena that take place with them, or we got to say that the creator himself is the one that created this phenomenon, intelligent design. Which one y'all want to accept, atheists? Those who push STEM and scientific literacy. Come on, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. How would Muhammad have knowledge of this unless he was dealing with some science? He would have to be a meteorologist, right? To observe the rain, demonstrating what is meteorology, deal with science of observing observable phenomena. You see, so we got to stop letting these people play with us, man. We got to stop this. And last but not least, because we talking about man too. Remember, when we go back to our subject title, we dealing with man, you know, consisting of the micro and the macrocosmic, or the macro and the microcosmic aspects when we deal with cosmology. We know in the darkness of the womb, after the seed that is known as semen or sperm, begins to find its place of gestation, so to speak, and it begins to evolve, there's a comparison that can be metaphysically, symbolically, allegorically, esoterically referred to in the same way that creation comes into being. Just like one goes into a mosque, dealing with Islam, and they begin to learn the mosque is also synonymous with mother. One goes into the mosque and finds its place of gestation, and they become knowledgeable, and then they come out a full-grown Muslim, and we call them Muslims over here. This is a symbolic action that takes place. But this phenomenon has already taken place in creation. Just through atoms coming, finding their place of gestation and expanding, the universe expanding, all of these things coming into existence. We can see us coming into existence and unfolding in our consciousness. That's why you hear us, we don't talk about evolution. We say as man unfold, his God unfolds. You see? And then he can be what he know. He ain't gonna be like Barata Rabo. Talking about he evolved from an ape, a plant, a beast, a worm, and all this and can't prove it. See, let man take himself back and trace himself back, through intelligent design. We going beyond fleshy things when you deal with intelligent design, i.e. Godhead. So, as you can see here, these are different stages of development, that are mentioned dealing with the fetus, the fertilized egg and, everything growing. And you go into the Quran, it says in Surah 23:13, then we made him into a drop of life germ. It was placed in his position, so to speak. Then 23:12, we created man out of the extract of clay, a safe depository. So we already know, we say, well, man was created from mud. Man was created from clay. You hear this being taught, but the Quran is giving a confirmation of this, right? It says 23:14, and we made this drop into a clot. We made the clot into a lump. Then we made the lump into bones. And then we clothed the bones with flesh. And then we caused it to grow into another creation. Thus, most blessed is Allah, the best of all of those that create. Now, what you trying to tell me, if you don't believe that this was revealed by the Most High, you saying that Prophet Muhammad was a surgeon. You saying that Prophet Muhammad was cutting women open. He observed, in one aspect of a day, fertilized egg. He took another woman, he cut her up 5 days later to see what the evolution was. Then he cut another woman up. And then he cut them up day by day, 5. He just kept cutting women up to see the stages that the baby unfolded into until he became a full-grown human specimen. A full-blown human specimen, so to speak. Not grown because it's still a baby. You trying to tell me that Muhammad, being an illiterate man now, he went in the womb. That's what you're saying if you don't accept that this was revealed scripture. And if you're saying that Muhammad did that, then you have to show us somewhere in the hadiths. You have to show us somewhere in Islamic tradition that Muhammad demonstrated this. And if you did do that, then that would mean that you were saying that Muhammad himself is a master surgeon, because he was able to observe all this phenomena that takes place in the womb over the month and the time that I mentioned here. The days, the months, the times. You saying Muhammad was a surgeon, or you got to accept the fact that through intelligent design, the creator created this, because that's what's revealed there. So I'm showing you certain things that you can't get around to show you that the Quran itself was revealed through the creator. So by you denying that this happened and saying, no, that's pseudo, the book don't exist and all this right here, you got to be able to prove your claim. And that's what I'm saying. Nothing wrong with you making your claim, but I want to see your information. Because y'all try to say that we have to bring forth our information and proof to show what we're showing, which I'm doing right now. I want to see your point by point presentation that will prove what you saying. Because I already know why. And I didn't even have to present this to the people to show what it is, because I know why I know that the teaching is real. I'm just showing this to the people so they know why I stand on what I stand on as I do. It's common sense, people. This is real scientific literacy right here in the light of sacred texts. You can deny it or try to separate it and say that ain't what it is, but I just showed you what it was. It even said here too in Surah 23, ayat 12 through 17, we did create from a quintessence of clay, reiterating, then we placed him as a drop of sperm in a place rests firmly, fixed. See, that's the connection to the umbilical cord, the uterus and so forth and so on. Then we made the sperm into a clot of congealed blood, and then of clot we made fetus lump, and we made out of that lump bones and clothed the bones with flesh, and we developed out of it another creature. Notice it says we, because we got the Malaika at work here. We got the angels at work right here. It says, so Allah blessed to create. After that length, ye will die, and again on the day of judgment, you will be raised up. And we have made above you 7 tracks, the 7 heavens, the 7 firmaments. And we are never unmindful of our creation. So, what more is there that you need to know? You see? And this was 477 they mentioned earlier, just to deal with them 7 heavens, since we mentioned it in our closing. It says, for days which may include thousands of years. You see, one day with Allah is considered 1,000 years or 50,000 based upon the activity being demonstrated. 50,000 deal with the amount of time it takes the spirit and the angels, though it's like a snapping of a finger, twinkle of an eye, light speed with the creator. But in our observation and observing phenomena, it would seem as if it would be 50,000 years to us, because that's how sluggish the consciousness of the human being is compared to that which is beyond it, that deals with intelligent design. So it says they refer to stages in evolution of physical nature in the biblical cosmology, which reflects on the old Babylonian cosmology. The scheme is apparently to be taken literally as to days and as follows. They talk about the creation in the 7 days of creation. The first day Allah created light, the second firmament, the third the earth and vegetation, the fourth the stars and plants, the fifth the fish and the fowl from the sea, and the sixth the cattle, creeping things, beasts on land and man, and on the 7th day he ended his work and rested. Our scheme is wholly different. You see, because we don't limit the aspects of dealing with the 7 days per se, but we're talking about the 7 firmaments being created, 7 stages. We're talking about the Europeans' interpretation. And we say that the original Torah, the original Old Testament teaching is just like ours. Our scheme is wholly different. Allah did not rest and never rest. His throne doeth extend over the heavens and the earth, and he feeleth no fatigue in guarding and preserving them. Allah's work has not ended. That's why you keep seeing aquatic life that come into existence, cosmological life that come into existence, because we teach that creation is still being demonstrated. That one word that brought about vibration, that caused the Big Bang, to cause constellations and galaxies to come into being, that same word is reverberating from that time up into this time. And so new life is constantly coming out of creation. You see? It says his activity still goes on. Man in our scheme does not come in with land and animals. His advent is much later. This is talking about the physical man now, not spirit man. It says our stages are not sharply divided from each other, as in the above scheme, where the stars and planets having been created on the 4th day, it is not intelligible how the first 3 days were counted, nor how vegetation grew on the 3rd day. our stages for the earth and heaven are not in sequence of time for the heavens and the earth. Our 6 stages are, broadly speaking, the throwing off of our planet from cosmic matter, its cooling and condensing, and the growth of vegetable animal life, and 6, the parallel growth and star realm in our solar system. So they going into that aspect, but it shows the process of evolution that's mentioned. And so that's why I chose those particular portions that are mainly dealing with the creation of the firmament and cosmology coming into being, without broadly going into the 7 days and how everything fully came into being. We wanted to point these things out, and we're going to go on a case by case and piece by piece demonstration and go further into this. What we do address those other things, but we want to show you, the true history in regards to dealing with this intelligent design, family. It don't get no plainer than this. Can't nobody else bring this like this, family. Can't nobody else bring it like Brother Commission. You know why? I don't say that to be arrogant or boastful. I say it because they want to stay either material, or some people want to be too spiritual. Commission is the balance between science and spirituality. That's what I come and that's what I bring to the table. That's what Allah gifted me with being able to demonstrate. And those who have had questions and would like to know, the balance between spirituality and science. This is what we call Moorish science, a living manifestation. If you want to know that, that's my gift of the understanding. That's the treasure that the great God Allah put in me to bring forth. You see, we can't help those who can't see that. We ain't trying to make them see it. But those who are looking for this type of information, thrice blessed to you. Here it is. Intelligent design, the great God, man, the macro and microcosmic principle of the creation and cosmology. Make it make sense to all of those who try to say it's otherwise. Make it make sense to those who deny the creator within themselves. Make it make sense to those who deny that intelligent design is not at work right now. If you notice what I'm doing, if y'all really pay attention to what I'm doing, for those who like to come in opposition to me, I'm overthrowing and debunking what the European is taught about ancient Kemet, what the European is taught about the Bible, what the Arabized Arab is taught about the Quran. I'm here debunking what the so-called Darwinists, atheists, is teaching about atheism, because even atheism is a science of the European. So if I'm here doing this, no different than our brother Sheikh Anta Diop, who was often called pseudo, who was often called everything else, but now they give him his flowers all of a sudden. So it don't make no difference whether you hate what I say or you don't like what I say or you try to go against what I say. The general opinion of men would never alter the nature of the truth, because I presented my information. I presented sources based upon this. And now it's up to those who are going against that to demonstrate the burden of proof, not me. You see? So that's what I have to say, family. And I got to get into my conference call and open it up, but we're going to keep bringing these measures on the manifest. So I want to find them people out there that's going to say that Prophet Muhammad was a master surgeon, and also those who believe Muhammad was a meteorologist, because you got to say he was that. You got to also say that he was about sailing the seas as well, in order to say that he had knowledge of that invisible barrier. And if you can't prove these things, then you got to do like scientists. You got to wait for some evidence to come up, or find something on your own to prove that all of this observable phenomena that I mentioned, is not the truth. You have to accept it as the truth until you can debunk it. We're not talking about debunking it by saying, I just disagree, because that ain't enough. Because if you can do that, then I should be able to do the same thing. which we know you ain't gonna let me do that. Even with sources, you still want to act like you don't want to accept the source. So this is why I say I don't waste time on these individuals anymore. So we want to give honors to everybody that showed up out here today. You know, those who I see that were there but didn't say anything in the chat, we give honors to you. Brother Noble Brian, always, man, I be up 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning. This one here is faithful Muslim. You know what I mean? Always showing up in support. If it ain't nobody but me and him on here, our brother gonna rock out. We give honors to you, good brother. You know, we know you know exactly where we coming from. You know, we give honors to the brother Marquise L as well. No problem with that, brother. Honors to you as well, good brother. You know, for showing up. You know, honors. You know, this brother here, one thing about the brother Brian L, he's sharp too. You see? He observe it. He see these people attacking what it is we bringing forth, but they can never prove what they saying. You see? And so they got our people that's ignorant running behind them, following evolutionists and atheists, and then going against science that our people done demonstrated. Come on, bro, that makes sense. If Dr. Ben disagree with them, they disagree with Dr. Ben. If Dr. Clark disagree with them, then they disagree with Dr. Clark. You see? Want to give honors to our brother, you know, honors to your brother Noble Brian. Like you said, Darwin had to have and access to the sources that I have brought forth. That's right. How could he come up with the conclusion that he came up with? And that's exactly what the agenda was, bro. It was the same thing. So, good brother, Noble Brian, when you get a chance, I want you to get this book too. In my closing, I'm gonna show it to you. This is one of the coldest to do it. He fought against the European. When Darwinism was first coming up, this man was so sharp, he even had his scholars, or the people that was following him, they fought in jihad. They fought, bro, to preserve the teaching, but he was fighting Darwinism. He was literally, they say he wrote some of this stuff on horseback while he was in the battlefield, because he was afraid that he would die and that knowledge would die with him. So he was writing and fighting at the same time. He was locked up. He was poisoned over 19 times, and he told his followers that they wouldn't be able to kill him until he completed his mission or whatever the case may be. But this is the most powerful demonstration that has to do with debunking Darwinism. And it all deals with, like it says, the observations of a traveler questioning the universe concerning his maker. And by the time he get through questioning, you're going to see that his white and red blood cells be asking them questions like, if you can't prove the process by which we demonstrate the function we demonstrate, you know, then be quiet. You know, his brain cells, you know, everything that's in the body basically is speaking to this traveler as he observes creation and phenomena in himself. Man, it's cold-blooded, bro. The Supreme Sign, written by Betty Uzum and Saeed Nursi, par himself. Yes, sir. So, yes, sir. Okay, here's somebody in here saying, you have very misunderstood the history of science. Okay, we already know where you coming from. You know, God isn't real. See what I'm saying? You entitled to that belief, David Hejudi, with an Egyptian name. Evolution is indisputable. Oh my goodness. We're gonna get you. I want you to we're gonna send me an email at egyptianadept@gmail.com, David. And when you send that to me, we're gonna have a conversation about this right here. I want you to come on here. I don't want you to do that in the chat. And I'm gonna let you open up and I'm gonna let you demonstrate your presentation. And I want to see your natural phenomena observation, not nobody else's, and prove what you're saying. Egyptianadept@gmail.com. So with that being said, peace and love, family. Peace, brother Noble Brian. We love you, brother. Islam.